Hey guys, I'm so sorry about that. Okay, so the video's deleted, and so I am going to be making new ones. So bear with me. I will be getting those done and out to you. But we are in language right now, so be prepared for that. We have been talking about our parts of speech. Make sure that you review over those. I think I'll be doing a separate video of the different parts of speech and what they are, you telling me what they are and all of that, and the songs, so that we can review those songs, because I think those are very helpful in helping you to remember what those parts of speech are for your nouns, your verbs, your adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, all those different songs and definitions that we've learned. So we'll be going over those. Be prepared, because Friday is your test. So we will have a language test in here not in here, but you'll have a language test on Friday, language test 14, I believe it is. So be prepared. Let me just double check on the number so I don't freak you guys out. Yes, it should be test 14, okay? So we'll have a language test, test 14, on Friday, so that you can be studying over the parts of speech, know everything about your sentences, know what kinds of sentences there are, whether it's declarative, interrogative, imperative, exclamatory, know the punctuation, your comma rules, your period rules, your capitalization rules, all of those quotation marks, all of those things that we've been talking about, that your plurals, your possessives, keep those things in mind. I know there's a lot of things to cover, but you've got them, those, because we've talked about them so much. So just review quick little reviews about, oh yeah, possessives shows ownership. It's going to either be those pronouns like we talked about, my and your and his, or it's going to be David's with the apostrophe S, that, those type things. So just be reviewing each of those as much as you can. So today we're going to be reviewing our adverbs. What is an adverb? What did we say an adverb is? Very good. A word that describes a verb. Okay. And so we've got a sentence here. Before we even get to that part of it, I want you just to look at our sentence. And I know you might not be able to see it as well, but I tried to get it a little bit closer. It says, our brown cat quietly stares out the window and gently pats at the raindrops on the window. So it's a nice long sentence, but it's very descriptive, and it's a good sentence to kind of look at and think, what do I know about this sentence? What are some things that I can pull out that I know from my language rules that we've talked about all year? So I'll read it again. Our brown cat quietly stares out the window and gently pats at the raindrops on the window. So when we look at that, what are some of the things that we notice? And I want you to be writing them down and thinking them through. But one of the first things that you would notice is that it's a declarative sentence, right? What kind of sentence? We know it's declarative because there's a period at the end of it, and we put a period after declarative sentence. Declarative sentence does what? It makes a statement. So when you see that period at the end and you see that that sentence is making a statement, you know that's declarative, okay? So now let's look at the other parts of our sentence. We could look for how our sentence goes together. We've got our nouns, right? What are some nouns? Cat, very good. Window, raindrops, window again. So we've got plenty of nouns in that sentence. And what is one of the things that we were doing with our nouns anyway? We were asking which one, what kind, how many, or whose to answer cat or window or raindrops or window. So what kind of cat? Brown cat, okay? Or we could say, which one, not the white one, but the brown one. But what kind of cat? Brown. And then we could answer the question, don't forget, whose. This one is the one that we often forget. We forget to ask whose. Our cat, David's cat, my cat, her cat. These are all words that are describing cat. So brown cat, our cat. Anything else? Yes, good. Don't forget the. is describing window. It's always an adjective. The for raindrops and the for window again. So each time you see the word the, that should be a hint. That is an adjective. Then, do we see any verbs? Obviously, we have to, or it's not going to be a sentence, right? There are 2 verbs in the sentence. That should be something you could observe about it. The verbs are stares and pats, right? So if we were to do a diagram of this, we would do cat does what? Stares and pats, okay? So that's how it would work, because there's 2 verbs that she's doing. Well, I'm thinking it's a she anyway. But then we need to ask questions of our verbs too now. What are the questions that we ask our verbs? How, when, how often. Remember how, when, where, or how much, how often? Okay, so stares, how? Quietly. So she's just quietly sitting and staring. But then what else is she doing? She's patting. And how is she patting? Gently, not wildly, but gently, okay? So gently describes pats, stares describes, or quietly describes stares, okay? And so when you're looking at sentences like this, I want to try to do this a little bit more to get used to seeing what are those parts of speech. Can I name them off? Do I know what they are? Now, there's going to be some that we won't know yet, but we will learn those eventually and get those down. But as long as you get the main ones that we've talked about, to learn the newer ones that we haven't learned yet, it's going to be so much simpler, because you've learned your verbs, your adjectives, your adverbs, your pronouns, your nouns, that. So think those through very carefully. Hopefully you did well on that. Then I want to go down to the bottom here, and I think I'm going to move you down here to get to that. We have our questions that we ask our verbs. We ask how, when, and how often, okay? So I have some sentences over here, and yes, they are complete thoughts, because Olivia spoke. As long as we have our subject and verb and it's a complete thought, it is a sentence. But we can ask something to add to that sentence. We can ask questions of our verb to add to that sentence, to make it longer, to make it more descriptive. So Olivia spoke. Okay. See, there wasn't an H on the page, but I changed it to an H for you, Olivia, so that you would see that. Okay. So Olivia spoke. And then we could say Olivia spoke how? Olivia spoke quietly. Or Olivia spoke loudly. Or Olivia spoke often. We could say how often? Often. Olivia hardly spoke. How often? Hardly. Hardly at all. Okay. Olivia spoke when? Yesterday. Olivia spoke. Okay. Olivia spoke to me today. Okay. We could ask when. We could ask how often. We could ask how. And you could just to tell that description. Olivia spoke. Or remember, it could come at the beginning of the sentence. Yesterday, comma, Olivia spoke. And it still answers the question, when? When did she speak? Yesterday. Okay. Olivia spoke to me today. Olivia spoke today. When? Today. Okay. So it could be at the end of the sentence, beginning of the sentence, right before spoke. It could be after spoke. With adverbs, it doesn't matter as long as it's answering the question how, when, or how often to the verb. Okay. Here's another one. The big fish swam. The big fish swam quickly, right? Quickly away from Jackson, right, Jackson? The big fish swam quickly. Or the big fish swam slowly or lazily. Or we could say when? Yesterday, the big fish swam right past me. Or the big fish swam right by today, okay? That will answer the question when. We could say how often. The big fish swam every day. The big fish swam always. The big fish always swam, upstream, okay? But always is describing how often, always, okay? So when you are saying these sentences, ask the questions and think, what are some good adverbs that you could answer? And I hope you guys were thinking of some good adverbs. Here's another sentence. The baby cried. I figured you would all say that, but it doesn't have to be loudly. Babies can cry quietly too. The baby cried how? Loudly. Ah! The baby cried softly, okay, or quietly. Um, the when the baby cried today, the baby cried yesterday, the baby cried 2 days ago. You know, we could say when. Um, we could say how often. The baby cried too much. The baby cried always. The baby always cried. The baby never cried. How often? Never. Okay, that is an adverb describing how often the baby cried. So think through. There's many different adverbs that you could use to describe those verbs and telling the finishing those sentences. We could even do something about, you know, Micah worked. Micah worked how? Micah worked tirelessly to get everything finished for his project. Or Micah hardly worked on his project. How often? Hardly. Or, you know, when? Hardly. Okay. He worked every day. He worked daily on his project. Daily would be the adverb describing how often Micah worked. So that's what you are doing on your language page today. Page 160, you are going to be filling in a good adverb for the sentence that's there. So think A, complete each sentence by writing an adverb that answers the question in parentheses. So there's the questions underneath in parentheses. You come up with a good adjective that would make sense to go in there. Remember, it doesn't always have to end in ly, but it has to answer the question. And if it does answer the question, you know, properly, many times it will end in ly, and that's totally fine. But if not, you know, especially when it comes to when there isn't usually like an ly word, it's more of a time when, yesterday, today, you know, whatever. So think those through carefully. Then think B, mark your sentences. Please, 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 please do that so that you're getting used to that, because the more you mark them, by the time Friday comes, you'll be marking your sentences properly and ready for that test, okay? So mark each sentence and then diagram the subjects, verb, and adverb. So do your subject predicate divide line, to underline your subjects, underline your verb, circle your adverb, draw the arrow, all of that, and then diagram them, okay? So again, I'm sorry, I apologize that the past video is gone, but here's a new one. So work hard on that page today. Hopefully you'll get that down just right and be ready for the test Friday. All right, see you later.